push you to? $1 million? Bet. I was like, yeah. Because that's only 5 years. He gonna make $1 billion before it's all said and done. Nigga like 24, 25. Nigga dollar stores you. Don't get mad at him because you agreed to go to take the money for the dollar store. He makes $60 million a year for the next 5, and he dollar stores you. Now you like, somebody was like, yo, you stupid. How you go? Why would you take $1 million when that nigga getting? You know, girl to sit there like, no, I was just thinking for the baby.
Put on. Yeah.
It's too late. You agree. You make $60 million a year, and he got you for $1 million. I would have been dumb happy. I've been like, yo, dumb happy.
Aunt Edwards news, because Aunt Edwards' baby mama is claiming that he lied under oath about his business dealings in California. Apparently, he's evading his personal jurisdiction. He's hiding money for his child support obligations. I think this is the same baby's mama he paid over $1 million to go away, but she's not gone away. She's back.
She
Mo,
got $1 million, right?
Yeah, I think she got maybe a little more than that. Mo, what's your general thoughts on this news?
What else y'all want from me? What else do y'all want? What else do you want?
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna steal stats saying, what is it? If you can get away with it, this is one of those things.
I gotta speak on this, Mo. I definitely gotta speak on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's the same baby mama that he ended up paying the entire child support up front, right? And the issue is that, you know, just like she finessed him and act like he liked her, like they say, right back ain't cheating. You know, now, you know, when it's time for me to pay up, I gotta, you know, hide my assets and put stuff off in the trust and put stuff off in other people's name. But she was devious for doing what she did. She's devious now for double back and trying to get money. So when he's acting like you know, you can't get mad that, yeah, you know, like who gets paid all of the child support money for 18 years up front and then is mad that you got to pay it all up front, then try to double back to try to get some more? Like, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, he's dealing with a nothing. He dealt with a nothing, had a baby with a nothing, and now you have a nothing set of circumstances. That's all it is.
He needs discernment. Go ahead.
Yeah, showing a skillful use of underhanded tactics to get a goal accomplished. That's devious. She's skillful. Yeah. Is being skillful at underhanded tactics to get the goal you desire. That's what it means to be devious. Just for the listeners, you know, when normally Killer tells us what I meant by it. So I'm just telling you what Mo meant by it. She's very skillful at using underhanded tactics to get the job done. That's what he meant by the word. I'm not saying she's devious, but that's what devious means. But I would say this. He did give her the $1 million up front. I thought that was a generous gesture, especially if both of you agree, because I'm not sure if both of you agree, but if they both agreed that this person didn't want to be in this situation, and he should be responsible to do something with the child. But if he wasn't going to be with the child, he did send the money, because I think that's the conversation we're having. Now, I know to raise a child, you have to be present and all of that, but she's not asking for time. She's asking for cash. She's not asking if he's available after the playoffs to come see the child. She's asking, is there more money somewhere? And I think that wasn't the goal, because once you gave the $1 million, I think the way that works, you got to sign off and say, you know what, that these situations are taken care of from now to 18 years old. Everything is taken care of. That's why it was tallied, it was calculated, and he sent the money. I think, and I'm kind of taken back because I took up for her when she did it. You know, when it came out, said, you know, this is why guys don't fight, right? You can't fight for, I don't know how I'm gonna say this, but sometimes you feel bad fighting for a woman. If you know that she's going to do something like this, it could put you in a bad place. So you got to get this right, because guys want to be there to protect the woman. But when you do stuff like this, there's nothing to protect.
So this is just a case of somebody put her on because she didn't know how to do math. Like, it's not even nothing but that. Anthony Edwards has a deal worth $244 million, 5 years. Let's just say to round it up to 250, right? And then for 5 years with the Timberwolves. Then he got a 5-year deal with Adidas for $50 million. So he gets $300 million the next 5 years. And so what's that, $60 million a year? Dollar treed you. Dollars. You went for it. You agreed to it. Nobody forced you to. Million, bet. I was like, yeah. Because that's only 5 years. He gonna make $1 billion before it's all said and done. Nigga like 24, 25. Nigga, dollar stores you. Don't get mad at him because you agreed to go to take the money for the dollar store. He makes $60 million a year for the next 5, and he dollar stores you. Now you like, somebody was like, yo, you stupid. How you gonna, why would you take $1 million when that nigga getting, you know, girl is sitting there like, no, I was just thinking for the baby.
Put on. Yeah.
It's too late. You agreed. You man make $60 million a year, and he got you for $1 million. I would have been dumb happy. I've been like, yo, dumb happy. I might, at this point, I'm like, yo, just take another $500,000 and leave me alone. But I feel him though. Cause he's like, I told you from the dribble, off the dribble, leave me alone and take the baby. I'm not supporting that. I would be in the child's life, but he didn't lie to you. This niggas is sitting here and tell you they coming to get their kid and don't show up for 4 years.
Yeah, tell you he in L.A. and he in the next door.
Yeah, now the part that got me more mad about anything is now you want to put me in jail? The reason I say put me in jail, she said he committed perjury. You go to jail for that if you lie under oath, bro. Now you want me to do 364 days. That's crazy. Like, yo, that's your fault. You should have thought about this before you did the deal. Listen, now I'm a sucker because I said what I said next. Tomorrow I'm going to be a sucker. Like a Cam, he's supporting this shit because I'm reading what's going on. Whatever. Dollar treed you, dollar told you. You should have had some better advice. I should have got counsel, should have some better friends, something. You can't get mad at it. The deal's the deal. Yeah, and then she keep on going back to California. The judge said, take your ass back to Georgia. The crazy shit is, Anthony Edwards don't even play in California. What's this California? Yeah,
I told y'all that California is the lick. Pause. As soon as they tell you they're going to California, you see her with a California extra ID, you know what's going on. She live in New York, but she got an extra ID that says California.
Well, and not just that, but the California lawyers know what time it is. They know how to extract money. They know how to get their piece of that money. It's a wild story. I think you're 100% right. When I saw that news come down, I was like, $1.2 million for 18 years? How is that going to break up when he's making as much?
Anthony Edwards has quickly turned into one of the NBA's biggest household names, combining elite talent, a huge contract, and now an increasing level of public interest in his life away from basketball. But according to a new wave of celebrity gossip discussion, another custody and child support controversy is allegedly taking shape, and two of hip-hop's most outspoken voices, Mace and Cam'ron, decided to unpack the situation on their podcast. Before we get too far into it, however, there is one major distinction that absolutely has to remain clear because it changes the way this entire story should be understood. What we are covering here is based on commentary, reactions, and opinions expressed by Mace and Cam'ron on their show. So these are allegations being discussed publicly, rather than confirmed facts, final court rulings, or proven findings against Edwards. So stick around, because we're breaking down exactly what the hosts discussed, how they viewed the situation, and why this particular controversy has suddenly generated so much attention online. And this is where their conversation really starts. Mace opens the Anthony Edwards topic by saying they have to address the latest development, describing it as a situation where the mother of one of Edwards's children allegedly came forward claiming that he was dishonest under oath about business activity in California. That is the allegation being discussed on the program. Mace then claims, based on information he says he has heard, that the issue may involve Edwards allegedly trying to avoid personal jurisdiction while possibly keeping certain financial details beyond reach when it comes to child support obligations. Once again, Mace is discussing and reacting to an allegation, not delivering a verified legal ruling or claiming that a court has officially established those circumstances. What catches the host's attention almost immediately is their claim that this is reportedly the same mother who had previously received a substantial lump sum payment from Edwards, allegedly somewhere around $1 million or even more, through an earlier settlement. So in the host's eyes, this doesn't look like an entirely separate situation suddenly appearing from nowhere. Instead, they view it as another chapter in the same ongoing story. Apparently, the earlier agreement didn't completely close the issue once the money was paid. Now, according to the hosts, the controversy has resurfaced with another round of allegations connected to it. Once that context is laid out, Cameron quickly enters the discussion with a reaction that sets the tone for what comes next. And when he's asked how he generally views the situation, he gives the kind of dry, straight-faced response fans expect from him, basically questioning what exactly people still want from someone in that position and what else they think should be required from him. He then takes that thought even further by explaining his own philosophy in extremely blunt terms, suggesting that when there is an opportunity to get away with something, his natural mindset would be to take whatever advantage is available. That statement represents Cameron's own personality and worldview, not proof that Edwards actually operated that way or carried out any specific behavior. His delivery is obviously meant to be provocative, funny, and a little uncomfortable, which is a style he frequently brings to the show, but he is reacting to the circumstances being presented rather than establishing a proven allegation against Edwards. Mace then takes the conversation deeper, emphasizing that this is the particular case he wants to examine, while explaining what he believes is the emotional and financial history behind the dispute. According to Mace, the situation allegedly involves the same mother who was supposedly given the entire value of an 18-year child support obligation up front through one major payment instead of receiving those payments over time. From Mace's point of view, and this distinction matters because it is still his interpretation rather than a confirmed legal fact, he questions how someone could accept that kind of deal and then allegedly come back later asking for additional financial support. Mace gets very direct while laying out his position, even using the word devious to describe what he believes the woman allegedly did based on his understanding of the situation. Cameron then jumps in to explain the meaning behind that word within their discussion, essentially describing it as using calculated or underhanded methods in a clever way to accomplish a specific goal. He also makes sure to clarify that he is explaining the way Mace was using the term, rather than necessarily agreeing with every part of Mace's description. From there, the conversation becomes even more intense because Mace continues offering extremely blunt opinions about what he thinks is happening, framing the situation as a conflict between what was supposedly agreed upon at the beginning and what is allegedly being requested later. Now, I'm not saying viewers should automatically agree with that framing or immediately choose one side, because some of the comments being made are undeniably aggressive and, at certain points, could reasonably be viewed as disrespectful toward the mother involved. But those remarks are ultimately the host's opinions, expressed on their own platform. More importantly, though, everyone watching should remember that this involves a real child support dispute and a real child whose life extends far beyond social media headlines, gossip, and podcast debates. Situations like this can have more than one side, and without access to every document, claim, response, and piece of evidence, nobody watching from the outside has enough information to make a final judgment with certainty. It is also obvious that the hosts are approaching the story from a place of support and loyalty toward Anthony Edwards as a public figure they respect, and that naturally plays a role in how they interpret and explain what is happening. As the conversation moves forward, another person on the panel, seemingly identified as Killer or Jeezy, depending on how the show's members are being referenced, offers a somewhat more cautious take. He emphasizes that Edwards reportedly made the $1 million payment up front, presenting that as a major financial commitment, especially if the original understanding was that Edwards might not play a traditional everyday co-parenting role, but still wanted his financial obligations handled. That member of the panel raises an interesting argument from their side of the discussion, suggesting that the current controversy does not seem, based on their interpretation, to be primarily about the mother wanting more time with Edwards or demanding greater involvement in the child's daily life. Instead, the hosts believe the bigger question may be whether additional income, money, or assets exist that were allegedly not included in the original arrangement. He then makes the argument that when two people negotiate a lump sum agreement and formally accept it, the normal expectation would be that the financial dispute has been settled, unless the agreement itself or the law says something different, potentially covering the situation throughout the child's younger years. He also admits that when the story first became public, he actually sided with the mother, saying he could understand why certain men might become reluctant to fully commit to a relationship or continue fighting for it if they feared the other person could eventually turn around and create a situation like this. That admission becomes an interesting part of the discussion because he is essentially acknowledging that his perspective changed as more information became available to him, at least based on the version of events being presented during the podcast. In the end, he describes the dispute as something that could potentially come down to one side not fully understanding the financial calculations behind the agreement they originally accepted. And that naturally brings the conversation toward the size of Anthony Edwards' actual fortune, which is where the podcast begins shifting from pure opinion into publicly reported financial figures. Based on the numbers being discussed during the show, Edwards reportedly agreed to a massive contract extension with the Minnesota Timberwolves worth approximately $244 million across 5 years. And on top of that massive NBA paycheck, Edwards has endorsement revenue that adds another significant piece to his overall financial portfolio. Edwards is also reportedly tied to an Adidas endorsement agreement worth around $50 million over 5 years, giving him yet another major source of income on top of an already enormous contract. Combine those two reported numbers, and the total comes out to roughly $300 million in guaranteed earnings over that 5-year window, which works out to about $60 million annually when the reported NBA and endorsement figures are viewed together. If those estimates are correct, they show just how dramatically Anthony Edwards' earning power has grown as one of the NBA's most valuable young stars. But none of those financial numbers by themselves prove anything about the child support allegations being discussed. The hosts mention the money primarily because they believe a one-time settlement of approximately $1 million looks relatively modest compared with Edwards' overall income potential. And honestly, that massive difference in scale is one of the biggest reasons they think this story has suddenly become relevant again. This is also the moment where the podcast shifts heavily into comedy. Cameron, in particular, starts repeating a joke involving dollar stores, basically arguing that taking a $1 million settlement from someone reportedly making close to $60 million a year could mean getting dollar stored, implying that the person accepted much less than they might have potentially received later. Of course, the language is intentionally exaggerated for entertainment, because these are musicians and entertainers reacting to a story, not accountants conducting an official financial analysis. But underneath the jokes, their basic argument is easy to understand. When you place a $1 million settlement beside an income picture approaching hundreds of millions, that one-time amount can suddenly look much smaller by comparison. That financial gap is a major part of why the hosts think the controversy has enough momentum to continue spreading, and they suggest it could shape how people view the question of whether more money might eventually become part of the dispute. But again, none of this determines what either party legally owes or whether any additional financial demand would actually have a valid basis. At this point, we are still dealing with podcast commentary, personal interpretations, and entertainment-driven reactions. Cameron continues the joke by imagining how the mother might eventually look back at the agreement, joking that someone could tell her taking the $1 million was a mistake, considering how much Edwards earns now, while imagining her responding that her main concern at the time was simply securing the child's future. That scenario is obviously hypothetical and exaggerated for comedic purposes, rather than being presented as an actual conversation that took place. Cameron basically plays both sides of the imagined exchange to make the punchline work. He even suggests that if he personally found himself in that position, he would be celebrating the original agreement, collecting the money, calling it a win, and moving on, rather than attempting to reopen the matter later. It creates a funny pause inside what is otherwise a complicated and potentially serious conversation. And honestly, that blend of serious allegations, brutally direct opinions, and almost sitcom-level joking is a huge part of what makes the show's discussion so unpredictable. But then, without much warning, the conversation swings straight back into the serious allegations, and this could easily be the most legally sensitive portion of the entire discussion. Mace claims that the newer allegations may involve the possibility of Edwards committing perjury, meaning he allegedly provided false information under oath during legal proceedings connected to the custody or child support dispute. Mace then stresses that, as a general legal concept, perjury is not something to take lightly and can potentially carry criminal penalties, including incarceration, depending on the circumstances and the jurisdiction involved. He appears genuinely stunned by the possibility that a dispute involving money, relationships, and family could potentially escalate to a point where jail time becomes part of the conversation, using that possibility to emphasize how serious the allegations could be if they were ever proven. But hold on, because this is exactly where viewers need to draw a hard line between an allegation and an established fact. What the podcast is discussing is a claim they say they have heard, and that does not mean Edwards has been convicted of anything or even officially charged with a crime. Perjury is a defined legal offense with specific elements that prosecutors would have to establish, and simply being accused of giving false information under oath in a civil dispute does not automatically equal a criminal perjury conviction. The hosts are responding to information they claim to have received, not delivering a legal ruling, and we should not treat their commentary as one either. So this section deserves extra caution, because right now the discussion is centered on allegations and speculation, rather than a confirmed legal outcome. From there, the conversation shifts toward jurisdiction, with the hosts suggesting that another disputed issue involves whether the case belongs in California or Georgia, while one of them claims that a judge instructed the mother to return to Georgia because of jurisdiction-related concerns. The hosts find that detail especially unusual because, as they point out, Edwards currently has no NBA team based in California, considering that he plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves. That makes California's involvement in the legal dispute seem confusing from their perspective. One of the hosts then jokes that California has gained a reputation, at least in his opinion, for being a place where certain approaches to family law disputes might potentially offer advantages, suggesting that some people could choose to establish residency or create connections there because of the state's legal framework. Again, that is the hosts speculating about possible motives or strategies, and it should not be interpreted as evidence that anyone involved actually made decisions for those reasons. As the segment starts coming to an end, the hosts begin summarizing their reactions, with the overall feeling being that the entire situation seems surprising when placed next to the enormous amount of money reportedly attached to Anthony Edwards' current career. One of them remembers hearing about the original $1 million settlement and says his first reaction was disbelief that the number was set that high, considering Edwards' yearly income. He then questions how an arrangement of that size could potentially come back into question after such a significant amount of time has reportedly passed since the original deal was made. And if we step outside the podcast for a moment, this story fits into a much larger pattern we've seen over and over again with professional athletes
and other wealthy public figures, where gigantic contracts and celebrity lifestyles eventually collide with the far more complicated and private realities of custody, family court, and child support disputes. It's a pattern we've seen across professional sports, where lump sum settlements can be agreed upon before an athlete's earning potential reaches its peak, only for the financial reality to look dramatically different several years later after the player becomes a superstar. Once an athlete's income explodes, the obvious question starts coming up. Does that original settlement still seem reasonable when viewed through the lens of today's money? And that creates a complicated collision between contract principles, where signed agreements are generally taken seriously, and family law, where certain jurisdictions may allow child support arrangements to be reviewed when there has been a major change in a parent's financial circumstances, especially when the ultimate focus is supposed to be the child, rather than whatever arrangement was most convenient for the adults at the time. That's exactly why stories like this can become internet wildfire, because depending on the circumstances, there may not be one answer that satisfies everybody. One side argues that an agreement should mean exactly what it says, particularly when both parties had lawyers, legal advice, or an opportunity to understand what they were signing, because repeatedly reopening settlements could weaken the entire reason people negotiate them in the first place. The other side argues that child support is fundamentally designed to provide for the child, not to reward one parent or punish the other. And when a parent's financial circumstances change dramatically, whether their income suddenly increases or in certain situations falls significantly, family courts in many places have procedures that can potentially take those changes into consideration when determining future obligations. The reality is that family law is extremely complicated. It can also differ significantly from one state to another and from one case to another. And when you throw a superstar athlete with hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts into that equation, public curiosity becomes massive, because those kinds of numbers are almost impossible for ordinary people to picture. There's also been a growing fascination with athlete paternity disputes, custody battles, and child support controversies more broadly. We've seen comparable situations involving recognizable names throughout the NBA and other major sports over the years. These stories hit social media, podcasts dissect every detail, fans choose sides, and what starts as a legal dispute can sometimes become a storyline that remains in the spotlight for months or even years, while the actual court proceedings continue largely away from public view. And one reason audiences get so locked into these stories is because of exactly what Mays and Cameron are doing during their discussion. They take huge financial figures, such as Edwards' Timberwolves contract and his reported Adidas endorsement deal, put those numbers next to a much smaller settlement figure, and suddenly there's an easy comparison that gives everybody something to debate online. But before we close this out, I want to emphasize the most important point one last time, because this is something viewers really cannot afford to overlook. Everything Mays, Cameron, and the other members of the panel discussed in that episode reflects their reactions, interpretations, and personal opinions about claims and allegations that have been circulating publicly. None of those statements should automatically be treated as a judicial decision, an officially confirmed outcome, or definitive evidence proving that Anthony Edwards did or did not engage in any specific conduct. Serious claims, including allegations involving perjury or undisclosed assets, are still allegations unless they are properly investigated, supported by evidence, and established through the appropriate legal process.
Today's social media environment, repeated statements, confident delivery, and dramatic commentary can very quickly make speculation sound like something that has already been proven. And that's exactly why this breakdown has focused on keeping a clear line between what the podcast hosts claimed and what has actually been verified, so you can follow the story without mistaking entertainment commentary for established evidence. Right now, the situation remains fluid. If legitimate court filings, official documents, or statements from the individuals involved eventually shed more light on what is actually happening between Edwards and the mother involved, that information should come through credible reporting and the legal process rather than being built entirely around podcast discussion. What we do know is that Anthony Edwards continues to stand among the NBA's most exciting young stars, with a massive Minnesota Timberwolves extension and a major Adidas partnership helping establish him as one of the league's most recognizable faces moving forward. Whatever eventually happens with the personal and legal questions surrounding his life, there is no denying his influence on the basketball court or the growing business presence he has created away from it. And watching how both sides of his story unfold could become very interesting as time passes. We'll keep an eye on credible developments as new information comes out, and if verified documents, official filings, or legitimate updates eventually surface, that is the information that deserves our attention because it gives us something much more reliable than secondhand reactions from a podcast. Stories like this can evolve overnight. Public sentiment can completely reverse, and one new detail can change the entire way people understand what happened, which is exactly why getting the facts before making a final judgment matters so much. So, that's the full breakdown of what Mace and Cameron discussed surrounding the latest reports involving Anthony Edwards and the broader situation connected to him. Now I want to know what you think. Should a settlement generally stay locked in once both sides willingly agree to it, or can a dramatic change in a parent's financial situation justify taking another look at the arrangement, especially when years have passed and the child's future, needs, and overall well-being are ultimately the biggest factors sitting at the center of the debate?